So 8 years is a long time to be coaching with somebody. Does it even work? How does it work? Why are you still coaching? I mean, I want to be very clear here at SFC, we are not healers, right? That I do not say I can heal you or any of that good stuff. Some people report that coaching sometimes helps them to heal parts of themselves that might need a bit of help. But that I want to be really clear about that. I'm not here to cure or anything like that. So 8 years, Sarah, does it even work? And how does it work?
It definitely works. I think that the short answer to that would be we're not coaching around the same questions and problems and challenges that we were 8 years ago. And I would add that the things that we're coaching around now are more interesting problems, more interesting questions and challenges. So, yes, it definitely works. But I mean, to me, it feels like um, ludicrous that you would fix all of your problems in even a few years of coaching, right? It's an ongoing thing,
Mhm.
and I can also see why for some people it's something that they want that extra level of support for a certain season in their life. But for me, it's an integral, ongoing piece of support that I like to have in my life.
Hmm. You have said that you would like everyone to get coaching, that you're a real evangelist for coaching. So on the back of that, why would that be? What would you say to people? What kinds of people would benefit from coaching? Because it's not just about problems either, is it? It's kind of enhancing. I know you use the word juice a lot as well.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of directing you towards something here. But why are you an evangelist for coaching?
Well, I think the most basic reason why I'm an evangelist for coaching is because I've experienced the benefits of coaching so clearly and directly in my own life. I do think everybody could benefit from coaching if they showed up willing to be coached. And so, as far as what you can get out of it, then yes, you're right. It's not just about problems, and it does help me get a lot more juice out of life. For me, it feels like a shortcut.
Mm.
So something that perhaps, maybe, eventually, I could have gotten to an answer, on that thing by myself. I feel like I could get there in like one session sometimes, or even just part of one session when you and I are working together because you're bringing so much skill as far as tools, as far as keeping us on track. Yeah, it feels like a shortcut.
Could you describe a typical session? I know you used to start off with 1 hour sessions, then you kind of graduated to 90-minute sessions. These days, you always book a 2 hour session.
Yeah. I think it would be difficult to describe a typical session because the sessions that we have vary quite a bit depending on what is going on and what I want to be coached around.
Yeah.
But I think that, yes, the sessions have got longer, and I think that that relates back to what I was talking about with more interesting problems, more juice. Like some of the things that we started out coaching about felt more challenging at the time, um, but they we actually got through them quite quickly. I think compared with some of the things that we're coaching around now, I feel like I really want to dig in for that 2 hours.
Mhm.
And so, but it does feel quite different to me. Um, mm, Almost every session feels quite different to me, actually.
It most certainly does. And
Yep.
in terms of content, yes, but in terms of structure, I'm always following a
Yes.
similar structure. Do you know how you would describe an SFC, the structure of an SFC? Because I never know what content's going to drop in. You might have sent me an email before to alert me to something you really want to do. So then I can kind of mentally prepare and dream it all up and things like that. But I always have a kind of, it's not obvious because I'm a seasoned coach, but there's a flow.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up that flow that's in place, because I think because of your skill, I am not necessarily paying attention. Like, it's not even on my radar. I kind of have the luxury of not monitoring that side. How is this being facilitated? Where is it going? The things that would, I guess, stand out as like common threads across different coaching sessions would be that I think that you always or almost always ask at the beginning of the session how I would like you to show up,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
Which I have very much appreciated at some time. So, an example of something I might request is like, not let me off the hook.
mhm,
Sometimes, or I'd be like, I am actually feeling quite fragile today, and I think I really need you to listen for a while I just vent. And I appreciate that opportunity to ask for what I need at
mm,
the session. And I think that another common thread between all the different sessions would be um, a, a few moments at the end to kind of take stock of, okay, what was it out of today's session that is really landing for you? What are you going to take away from this session to kind of reflect before leaving that coaching space?
I've noticed that one difference between me and between SFC and other coaches is that I don't always force somebody to make a to-do list or to get out there what they're going to do next. And I don't feel any, sometimes I might say, okay, next step. But I've never felt that. And it's something that, in a kind of ICF world, or in a kind of, if somebody was assessing me, they might pick me up on that. But I don't, I like to kind of leave that open to people. Sometimes we have a next step, and we do, and we've got very concrete steps out, like creating meeting some things, or where you need to go to do the paperwork that you need to do, or something like that, and timelines. But very often I just leave that very open. How is that for you?
Yeah, I think that that also feels like it ties back to what we're coaching around.
Right.
So when we have been coaching around those kinds of very concrete to dos, right? Then I feel like I have left sessions with a very concrete next step or next few steps. So in that case, I think that that was very valuable.
Mm.
And then a lot of the time these days, the next step is not the critical piece necessarily, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not the gold, or the gemstone that I need to be sure that I walk away with. Like, I can kind of figure that bit out on my own, or it's a little note and it's kind of not worthy of that positioning in
Mm.
some way. And there's actually something deeper, juicier, richer that is the real treasure from that session.
Huh. The real treasure from the session is juicier and deeper than the next thing on the to-do list sometimes.
Yeah, quite often.
Quite
Yeah.
often. Yeah. I think I work in quite a trusting way with my clients in that regard as well. I hope I don't infantilize my clients in that way. And when we in the group sessions, I always used to have a saying, do you remember it? You're the boss of the whatever.
Yes. Yep.
How
Uh,
did that work? I mean, that landed extremely well for you, but what did you learn from that? I think this is something that we've worked upon as well, is kind of permission and noticing that, like for me, that's kind of a comedy way in a group to allow people to seek less permission for things, um, but also with also holding that knowledge that people sometimes need a bit of reassurance or validation if they're a bit insecure, which is fine. I'm not a coach who's like, well, they're insecure. I'm a coach who like sees that, but also thinks wants to create some accountability for people around that in themselves. How is that for you? What have you learned about permission along the way? Not learned, sorry, but like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I do.
what's emerged for you about permission?
Yeah, we've spoken about this before, and permission is a really interesting one for me because I think of it as a muscle. And
Mm,
so even if in the beginning, um, I might have been a bit uh, hooked on, oh, but these were the instructions, and am I allowed to, color outside the lines? And every time that you would make a comment, and I think of those comments as quite playful, a
what
little bit
kind of comments,
the
Sarah?
what you were saying before about the like, well, you're the boss of the, and that might be something like you're the boss of the words, you're the boss of the, I'm trying to
Post-it
think.
notes.
Yeah, the post-it notes, right? That's a
Yeah.
good one. And so even though logically, the first time that I hear you say, no, it doesn't have to be three post-it notes. You're the boss of the post-it notes. If you decide that you want two or four, like that's fine. Um, that I can get it logically, and conceptually, and I can still have that inclination to be like, but she said three and I want four, for a while. It's like a muscle that needs to become accustomed, to that, it's not a hard and fast rule. And I do feel like that's one of the things that I really built that muscle over the years, but it wasn't instant. And then I do notice that is it feels like a muscle and a skill that comes up more often than I would have even thought before, where I'll notice in different settings, like, people saying, oh, but, and it's fine, we don't have to worry about that. In fact, when I was on holiday with my mum and my sister and the rest of our family in Fiji a couple of years ago, they started parroting back to me, yes, we know, Sarah, we're grown ass women and we can do whatever we want. And so I feel like it's been very like uh freeing and fun to get out of that like coloring in the lines mindset.
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously I still have that as well. I think we all do, but I think in really and I also want to say that I want to honor my friend Angeli, who she was the one who posted that lyric, and that lyric actually is a singer in America, I who has that. Um, and I don't have that off the top of my head, but I'll find out who it is. And I love it. You're a grown ass woman and you can do whatever you want. And it's like, oh, that's great. For most people who aren't kind of super entitled, it's like just take the amount of entitlement that you're entitled to. You really can, like, the great example for me is when I run the clothes swaps and I go, oh, small's over there, medium's there, large is there. I've got extra large. Put it in large. And it's such a sweet thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now I start the clothes swap off by saying, if you can't find a place for your clothes, just choose a place. If you need permission, come and ask me.
I think you've hit on something really important there, because I do think that Sarah Furia coaching creates a lot of safe spaces to do that kind of thing. So I think that Sarah Furia coaching is one of the places where I learned to ask for things in that way of like, I can ask, they might say no, that's okay, right? And to be honest with you, I think it would have been a bit scary to test out that skill in some other environments because maybe those people wouldn't have been so okay with just saying no. And then it might have become a more uncomfortable experience.
I love that you have hit on that, Sarah. I can ask, they can refuse, and that's okay. And that muscle building and having a safe space in which to do that. And I think that one of the great things that coaching has given me, and what I'm hearing from you as well, and especially in Sarah Faruya coaching, is yeah, I even had another client who said exactly the same thing. Their biggest takeaway from their 2 engagements was, I can ask, they can refuse, and that's okay. Because what can happen, and this is one of the great things about coaching, this isn't only about this specific situation, it's about many other situations. And the deeper you go, the more subtle and nuanced these little things are. Like, my own coach called me out on, it sounds like you're really uncomfortable saying no. I'm like, oh no, really? You need to point me towards that, because I got really good at saying no. But actually, when it came down to some other more crunchy stuff, I was really struggling, but I didn't know. I didn't
Hmm.
see it, right?
Hmm.
But I can ask, they can refuse, and that's okay. When you don't have that system in play, and many other coaching systems, it can become like, they put upon me. How dare they ask me that? They know I can't do this. And it becomes this really unpleasant, kind of toxic environment there. Or you feel like, oh, I can't ask them that because they're so busy. Then it's like, but you can ask and they can refuse. So if you start to
Hmm.
build this muscle of how to do that, I know you're really busy. Is there any possibility that you can do this? And they say no. And you've created that system, that kind of edge where refusal's actually a fine thing, right? In a really nice way, in a
Yep.
really
Yep.
kind of direct and professional, or direct and caring and non-performative way, then all of that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. And the more that that becomes the norm, the more that we can all ask and the more that we can all say no if we want to, right? Or
Or
only say
yes.
yes if we want to,
Yeah.
right? And so it all becomes a much healthier and more pleasant place to be.
Mm. Healthier and more pleasant. All right.